Hello, students. We had ended the story to where the child had made a bold request from his parents to enjoy the ride on the roundabout, and we do not know whether his parents had permitted him or not. Let's see what happens later. There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. Now, where his parents have gone? He became very shocked. A sense of panic overtook him, and he kept on searching for his parents everywhere. A full, deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in real fear, "Mother, father!" Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic stricken, he ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither, in all directions, knowing not where to go. "Mother, father!" he wailed. His yellow turban came untied, and his clothes became muddy. Suddenly, we see that he ran to look for his parents. His throat had dried with crying. He was crying in real fear. "Mother, father!" Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His face became red with fear, and he was violently shaking. Panic stricken means he was so much scared. He ran to one side and then to the other, here and there in all directions. You can see here, children, how uh, scared the child was, not seeing his parents around. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated. Before that, we see that he did not even pay heed to his clothes, which became muddy, and his turban had also came untied. It got opened, but he kept on running in a rage. Rage means, you can say, in anxiety, in search of his parents. But at one point, he found himself like defeated. His cries suppressed into sobs. His violent cries turned into sobbing. At little distances on the green grass, he could see through his filmy eyes men and women talking. He could not see clearly as his eyes were blurred with tears, but he could see people talking and laughing at a distance. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow clothes. He tried to find out his parents among those people who were brightly colored, who had worn brightly colored dresses. But there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. Now he ran quickly again, this time to a shrine. Shrine is a temple to which people seem to be crowding. So a huge crowd had gathered at the temple there. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering, "Mother, father." So the boy could make his way through their legs, under their legs, and he just kept on looking for his parents. Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. So a huge crowd had gathered at the entrance of the temple. You see how it happens when people get assembled at a shrine. So here also a huge crowd was seen. Men jostled each other. Jostled means they were pushing each other. Heavy men with flashing murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. So these men were well built, and they had murderous here. You can say they had very cruel, or you can say not caring about anybody, unkind eyes were there. And the poor child, he struggled to thrust a way between their feet, but knocked to and fro by their brutal movements. The child was struggling. He was trying to make a way through their feet, but he was knocked by their brutal movement, cruel movement. He might have been trampled under their feet had he not shouted with his highest pitch, "Mother, father!" A man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stooping with great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. So, like an angel of God, a man appeared in the crowd, and he put in a lot of effort to pick up the child in that crowd, and he rescued him. "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" the man asked as he steered clear of the mass. So, while he was making his way clear of the crowd and coming out of the commotion, he kept on asking whose child he was and where were his parents. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, "I want my mother, I want my father." But he could only get the reply in deep crying and sobbing that this child only insisted to have his parents. The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "Will you have a ride on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the ring. Now his very favorite roundabout, which he had wanted to enjoy a few minutes earlier. Now the scene has altogether changed. The man took him to this roundabout and comforted him and tried to divert his attention by letting him enjoy the ride. He gently asked as he approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs, and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man headed towards the place where the snake charmer still played on the flute to the swaying cobra. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his fingers and shouted his double pitched strain, "I want my mother, I want my father." So now the snake charmer's melodious tune is also not entertaining the child anymore. The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. "Would you like a rainbow colored balloon?" he persuasively asked. Persuasively means in a convincing manner. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man, still trying to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. "Look, can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck?" The garland of gulmohar, which were lying in heaps in the basket, and the fragrance of which let the child stood there for a while. Now he does not want to look at them. He wants to go away. These flowers do not interest him anymore. The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob, "I want my mother, I want my father." Reiterated means repeated. His sobbing continued, his insistence continued. Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of the sweet shop. So now the man tried to console the child. Disconsolate means which cannot be consolated. So he was putting in all his effort to comfort the child, and so he took him to the counter of the sweet shop. "What sweets would you like, child?" he asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." The barfi, his favorite barfi, coated with silver and gold foil, which had attracted a lot of crowd around the shop, Now this Barfi is no more his favorite. So here, children, in the story we get an idea that for the child nothing is most precious in the world than his parents, and all those things which he had wanted earlier are of no use for him. He only wants his parents now. We do not know whether he was able to meet his parents, but the story is ending in a hopeful note, because we have seen that this child was in the hand of this man who was kind, and he wanted to help him out. So probably this person might take the child to his parents.